What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. Hope everybody had a great day today, and we're ready to rock and roll. We're going to have a little bit of a different format tonight. We're going to have a Q&A with the three gentlemen we have here on screen. And before we do introductions there, I just want to go through a couple things that we wanted to highlight, a couple shout-outs and some upcoming events, and then we'll get to the Q&As. And Steve, our producer, will have it up on the bottom of the screen. But please, any questions you have for us, regarding religion, skepticism, atheism, go ahead and start shooting them off, and we'll just make sure that you specify who you want that question to be read off to. But first of all, we have a lot of little remix. We have a lot of regulars already, which is amazing for only doing this for 20-something odd days. So first of all, as a channel, we officially hit our 200 sub mark, and that is fucking huge, and it's awesome. So for those of you, big shout out for all of those that on the regular come and hang out with us and check out the content. You know, our goal is to bring you the best content possible every single time we get on here and find all sorts of guests, and I even want to say, so far we've had a lot of Christian guests, but if you have friends that are of any faith, any religion, we want to talk to anybody and everybody, so encourage them to come by. We'll have that conversation. But for those of you that jump on every time you see our live coming on, or you see that we've posted a new clip of one of the interviews, thank you. All the guys are very, very grateful, and it's a big deal for us. And we think the world of you guys. And like I try to say every episode, you guys are the rock stars, the ones that come and support us. So thank you very much for that. The next exciting item is I got the t-shirts in, got some of the merch in. So if you guys can see it, I'm rocking the, yeah.
Is that a Smedium? Is that a Smedium?
Yeah, don't worry about it, Pasta.
It's baby gorilla.
So we got them in, and I'm currently building the store on our website so that we can take credit cards and PayPal and all that. So really within the next, obviously I'll make an announcement on social media and stuff once it's launched. But the next few days you'll be able to order the shirts, and you'll see. I think I have 5 different designs that will be on there, so you'll be able to purchase those, and we'll be kicking out some more stuff too. I want to have some hats and some different things on there too. So we have that, and then kind of a plug for a fellow skeptic, a fellow atheist that I wanted to give a shout out to, and maybe we can hashtag him or whatever, make sure he hears this. But Godless Engineer, if you're not familiar with him, go subscribe to his channel, like it. He has amazing stuff on there.
Yes,
and he's been on his last, I would say 3 videos, something like that, really focusing on debunking the story of Jesus. And I've learned a ton, from it. And he just launched an app here in the last few days. I hope I'm saying this right. It's Crestus. And so I got it. It's $6.99, but so far it's worth every penny of the $6.99. And it's essentially, epistemology, taking you down, question by question, step by step on how to break down that story and what's real, what's proven, what has evidence, and even getting into some of the history and the accuracy of the history behind that story. So if you want to, and even Christians, anybody can download an app and get a ton from it. It doesn't matter. But so again, Godless Engineer, go check him out, download that app. I know he'd appreciate it, and I think you'll get a lot of use out of it. And then lastly, some upcoming events. That way everybody knows. I've had several people, hey, what's the schedule? Because we kind of hadn't put anything out the last couple of days as far as what's coming up, because we're trying to get everything confirmed. So Monday night, some of you may or may not have seen this on social media, we will have Mark the Legend on at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And for those that don't know, we've had several conversations with Mark, and Mark's a good dude. He's a good guy. Now we think that he's pretty far-fetched on his claim. He claims that he is the return of the Messiah. And that, I can't wait to talk to him, because it's one thing to claim that God's real, and then it's a whole nother thing to claim that you are one or part of that God. So, so I can't wait to talk to him. And then Friday night, waiting for the time confirmation on this, but a gentleman named Mike and Pastor John. These are gentlemen that we know from TikTok and social media. We're actually going to host a debate for them that night and let them duke it out. And so far, I believe the subject at hand will be the existence of a God. So it fits what we're doing here perfectly. So and I think Mike's going to destroy Pastor John. Then next,
which Mike is this?
I'd have to get his. I don't want to. I haven't got his permission to release his last name. So
sure, the one in the Discord, right?
Yeah, using the Discord.
Yeah, there was a lot of mics, so it's really hard to narrow it down.
Yeah, he's in the Discord, so I'm looking forward to that, because anytime that I can listen in, and learn and get better myself, it's I think it's a great opportunity. And then on the 31st of this month, we're going to have Neil, the 604 Atheist, on our show to sit at the round table. And he's another one. If you don't know who he is and you're not following him, go do it. He focuses a lot on deconversions on his show. And he's had just about all the ACA hosts on his show. Seth Andrews has been on his show. So it's a big deal for us to have him on. And I'm super excited to have him. And he's just a chill dude, man. I already know he's going to get along with us great. He's just relaxed, kicked back. He's drinking while he's doing his show. I mean, he's just, he's badass. So we'll have him on then on June 8th at 4:00. I'll be a guest on his show, talking about my deconversion and what that process looked like, that story looks like for that. And then we have some other things we're working on, but they're not firmed up yet, so I'm not gonna share those. So again, for everybody, thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in every single time we pop up. And it's been fun 20-something days already, and I know it's just going to get better and better and better from here. So that being said, I am Austin with the Atheist Roundtable. As always, my partner in crime, co-host Mike. What's up, my man?
What's up, guys? I'm hoping we get some good questions, man. I'm hoping it's someone challenges us.
Yep. I'm sure we will. And then making as far as sitting down and doing a Q&A and actually helping to host an episode, his debut here on the roundtable. I feel like I'm doing a wrestling announcement right now. Debut at the roundtable in video, live and in action. And we look up to Pasta. He's a great dude and has become a great friend of mine. But Pasta Mike has joined us tonight. Pasta, how the hell are you doing?
Who drinks on the show?
You.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm doing great, man. You guys are killing it so far. Love the platform. Love the episodes. We just need to get more folks on and chat. So hopefully, not mentioning any names, but Chris Ellery, Shawnee the Kid, some of these guys need to come on the show and chat with us. You've seen the platform, guys. Just come on and have a chat. And Tia's already got questions coming in, I think. Who's this Tia girl anyway? She's fan, groupie or something?
That is my absolutely gorgeous girlfriend.
Oh, okay. So back off is what you're saying, basically.
Back to hell.
She says, my question, Pastor and Jesus, is it difficult working with such a stud? She means Steve. Steve, she means. Does she mean Steve or?
I would assume Steve.
Yeah.
He's the prettiest.
He's so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just need more theists on here to chat. And so far, as you can tell, nobody's getting to debate or get beat up or anything. It's all just, how did you get to your belief? Why do you believe in these things? And why do we end up in one place and you end up in another place? So it's just that's just the model of the show. But we're going to get in some questions. Who's going to start the thing off?
Yep. Producer Steve, do we have any questions that pop up there?
He's got one from Chris up right now.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. I actually got to meet Darby Allen. He probably nobody understands what we're talking about. This is like a nerd stuff. So I got to meet Darby Allen actually at the Power Factory that they have. It's like a rock throw from my house. But I would say Kenny Omega all day, every day.
This is no, this is not. This is obviously not WWE. This is
No,
the
not
shittier
them.
version, the crappier.
This is where like one Christian wrestler comes in the ring, and then an atheist wrestler comes in the ring, and then the winner is, if God exists or doesn't exist. Basically, that's how that works.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's a different type of wrestling. No, it's like the rival to that company.
Cool. All right. Well, while we're waiting for some questions, kind of prepped you guys before we got started. While we wait on people to show up and start asking some questions, that I had a topic to bring up, and maybe this will help stir up some questions. But earlier, Mike and I were on the phone, and we were just discussing some conversations we had online and things like that. And one of the things that came up was discussing the the Christian faith's dependence on the four gospels, because that's kind of their cornerstone, so to speak, because it's in those books where it discusses the resurrection of Jesus. And when I first started my deconversion process, I can't remember who it was, because I wish I could give them credit, but I was listening to them, and they said, take those four gospels and read the first chapter of each one, then the second chapter of each one, and keep going and take notes on each one. And by the time you get to the end of it, you'll find out how inconsistent they are, and you'll see that they can't even get it right. So then, on top of that, we still don't know who even wrote the four gospels. So we have these four books that hold the cornerstone belief of the Christian faith, which is the resurrection of Jesus. And not only do they not spell out the same story, the same accurate story in the four different versions, but we don't even know who wrote the four different versions. So I would love to get your guys' take on that as lifetime atheists, because for me, when I went through it, without being drunk on the Jesus juice, going through it, it was like, holy shit! Like, I actually believe this. I don't even know who the author is. I wouldn't read any other book that was supposed to, quote unquote, transform or change my life and actually apply it if I didn't even know who wrote the damn book.
Yeah. That was my struggle with actually just trying to do my own research, especially when I was 15 years old, and not having an understanding. Initially, I guess the first mistake a lot of people make is like they just think it's a book. It's just one book, but it's not even that. So there's a lot of like hurdles you have to go over to fully even understand what it is you're reading, which gets into the whole telling of how unreliable it is and why it shouldn't be this difficult if it's the most important message that we have. But besides those points, it's the more I did, or I actually started to understand those concepts, and I would think that too, reading it. Mark must have been written by Mark. Matthew must have been written by Matthew, and not understanding the actual context of when you look at it, you actually see that Matthew and Luke are pretty much ripping off Mark. For what, a good 60 to 80% of it, and you have examples like Mark 6. And I apologize to any of the viewers if they can call me out if I'm not getting the right verse, but I believe it's Mark 6 and Matthew 14, where you have the story of a guy, or of Herod's wife wanting to kill John, I believe, and then on the flip side in I believe it's Matthew, it's that Herod wants John killed, and the context of how the king is grieving, you can tell in editorial analysis that the one was copied from the other, and it's not Matthew to Mark, or it appears to be Matthew from Mark, and all that stuff. And then I think it's me and you were talking about it earlier. Is it Mark 16:9 through 20? Is that the serpents?
Yeah, where you can drink poison and handle snakes, and yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Mark or Matthew. But then you get into those kind of things, and where it's like, I know I'm skipping around a little bit, but it's strange because it's like, well, now I have something that is being told by biblical scholars is kind of added, or not part of the original. So it's like, it gets very convoluted for me. It's all, and I understand why there's a lot of confusion and stuff like that. I'm definitely no expert. I would look to someone like you for guidance in that area. And I talked to a guy, Nathan, last night, theist. He's a super young and smart guy, but there's a brick wall that I'll hit at a certain point because it's very confusing at times. And for me, it's like, I mean, I don't feel like it should be. It seems like to be a testament to the New Testament and Old Testament that this was not a good way to get the most important message of all time down.
Yeah. It's a very poorly written book, regardless of whether we're talking about the Gospels and the Old Testament's even worse. But Pasta, before we come back to you, because I really want to hear yours on that too. But we do have a question from one of the viewers, and if Mike, if you don't mind reading that off for me, my contacts are a little foggy.
You talking to me, Mike, or Pasta Mike?
You.
So anyway, since it's over my face and it's been up for a little while anyway, apparently this gentleman is from Discord. I've actually seen him communicating in Discord for quite a bit. He's asking, do we identify ourselves as atheists in the philosophical term or in the sense or in the standardized usage? And if I'm not mistaken, there is a variant where
sure.
It's slightly more burden of proofy, for lack of a better term, in the philosophical sense, where it's more definitive in the sense that you lack belief in a god or deity, in the more modern usage of the term, and you simply have a disbelief with the philosophical. You might want to pull it up and double check. But
yeah, you can confuse me all day long with philosophical elements that are introduced to it. For me, it's as simple as a theist thinks a God exists, an atheist doesn't think a God exists, or lacks that belief. It just doesn't hold the belief of being. They are not a theist, therefore they are an atheist. It's as simple as that for me. To what level do you want to broaden that or narrow it down? I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you say a Christian, I mean, are you talking about a Catholic? Are you talking about a Baptist? What are you talking about there? It's like, I feel like it is okay to section that off, and especially in regards to your knowledge about that belief. I know a lot of people that disagree with me, though, especially like I talked to Steve McRae on his show a while back about agnostic versus atheism, and I respect like his opinion on that, but I think that stuff confuses it more. I think it's easy just to say you're a theist if you believe in God, and then if you just don't believe in a God, then you're an atheist.
I have a slightly different opinion of it. So if you reverse it and talk to a Christian and you ask a Christian, are you 100% convinced that God exists? And they say to you, yes, I am. Then that person would be considered a Gnostic theist. They have no doubt in their mind that their God is real. If they're Christian, they identify as a Christian, they're a theist, but they're 80% convinced that their God exists. They might not have had a personal revelation or something. Then they're an agnostic theist. And the same applies to an atheist.
Sorry, I was still on mute. My answer to that's always simple. It kind of relates to what both the gentlemen just said. Being a former believer, I would just go to the definition, just go to the dictionary. The lack of belief in a God, and that's if you want to title atheist or whatever title you want to put on it. That's my stance. I haven't found good evidence that suggests that there's an existence of any God, not just the Bible God, but a God, period. So mine's very simple. So producer Steve, next question.
I think I'd rather be labeled almost a skeptic in the sense of that. It's like,
Sometimes I agree. Yeah, sometimes I agree.
If you convince me a God exists, then cool, I'm no longer an atheist, right? So at that point, I'm still skeptical. It's still the overarching kind of process for me. So that's what's most important to me.
All right, Pastor, will you read that question off for me?
Is it safe to say that you were? I think it's were. So, Austin, is it safe to say that you were never a Christian?
I laugh when people say that because I lived a life, quote unquote, sold out to God, and sacrificed a lot, gave a lot, and put a lot into that faith and that belief. So if it's going to say, well, you weren't a true Christian, and we're going to get into no true Scotsman, I don't take a lot of time to argue with people over that, because for anyone to try to say that I was not a real Christian just because now I'm an atheist and now I'm not convinced that God is real, that's usually not a fruitful conversation, because you weren't there. You didn't know me. Now you're making assumptions simply on the fact that I now have adopted the title of an atheist.
Shout out to Null Answers, by the way. He came in real quick. I think he's leaving, so I just wanted to give him a shout out. He came across from TikTok.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Pastor, you want to read that next one there?
Okay. Grumpy old cuss LNK. Big fan of this guy, by the way.
Absolutely.
Pastor, what is good? What is a good start to learn epistemology? Right now. Start right now, today. Go to YouTube and look up the fundamentals of epistemology. And there's a bunch of cool videos, little self-teach, self-paced stuff. Just look it up. It's really cool.
And I feel like right now we need to shout out Anthony Magnabosco. He's the man on there as far as going through, and he has tutorials even on there on what questions to ask and kind of systematically how to approach that. So he has great live training on there too.
Sure.
Now
I'd also
street epistemology.
Yeah, I would urge.
Correct. My bad. My bad. Yep.
I would urge going to his Discord and reaching out to him, because he's made time every time I've ever asked him a question on any platform ever. He's made time. So I don't want to overload him with people, but I would say it seems to be welcome. So I'd add that.
That's that Discord is not his, though. It's run by it's a fan-run Discord that he's approved. Okay, do you trust most of history from Josephus, Tacitus, and many other ancient texts from credited authors? I guess it's just an open question. Go ahead, Austin.
I need to read that again.
I mean, I can.
Yeah, it's really small on my screen. Read it for me one more time, please.
Do you trust most of history from Josephus, Tacitus, or many other ancient texts from credited authors?
Yes, Josephus. I absolutely do.
Okay.
I lost my theology degree, by the way.
For me, the first question: do you trust most of history? To a degree, I guess, but also a lot of history doesn't impact. I mean, unless it's like scientific, in terms of advancement and things that we know, it doesn't really impact my worldview in a lot of ways. I'm sure some do, but if I'm wrong about King Arthur being a real person, changes nothing about my worldview. But as far as guys who were late, first century, I don't know. Maybe. I think there'd be arguments to be made that stuff is copied from Josephus, and I think I might be referring to Acts, but don't quote me on that. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say I would trust. It's kind of there. I trust things that I can demonstrate. It's hard to demonstrate history. So.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, it's all poorly written. So whoever was copying the copy of the copied copy, we'll never really know with 100% certainty. but I I think it's great. Well, like even when Josephus, when he came out, and I believe it's in that text, and it talks about where Judas was actually asked by Christ to turn his back on him to set up the crucifixion. And that was the first time we'd seen that, but then nobody wants to talk about that. We want to leave that story alone, or we just want to try to debunk the whole book because it strikes a chord. So, producer Steve, next question.
Null didn't leave. He said, "Pasta, where can I buy an audiobook read by your voice?" Send your message on a postcard to Austin. Go. I'll just drop it in the Patreon link right there.
Anything else up there?
Yep. Steve? I think Mike's been studying this recently. So, all right. Question for the guys. So, tag drives me nuts, says Grumpy Old Cuss. Any suggestions for that argument? Mike, you just been going crazy on this one.
I guess it depends on what variants of tag you're going on, because I've heard like so many at this point. I would say the first thing I would say is that if you're not using a tag specifically, like I'm talking to somebody now who their transcendental argument for God specifically does deal with Yahweh. Typically, it seems to just be a pretty straightforward deistic argument, and I don't know how we get to Yahweh from there. So even if you just accept everything, it's like you're still. I kind of equate it to like being in the waiting room before you get to see the doctor, and they're just asking you all these financial questions, and you're like really concerned about what's going on in your body, but you have to wait there and deal with all this shit before you can actually get to what you're here to talk about, which is how do you know your specific God, who very specifically sent himself in human flesh. And I think it's kind of weird we use these transcendental arguments when you have a physical representation of your God that we can actually go and investigate. And I'd rather focus on that than having to just say, I disagree with premise one because you haven't demonstrated these transcendental facts of reality, nor do I really fully understand how you get to your conclusion based off of it. But in regards of, does tag fail or does it not? I just don't think it fucking matters. I think you convince somebody with it. They're the same step they are to Zeus, to Allah, to Yahweh. They're in the exact same position. You didn't help them get to your Lord and Savior. And I think that misses the whole fucking point of what you should be doing as a Christian or whatever religion you're doing. But yeah, I just don't think it's a good argument at all. If you want very specific things, then I can give you a whole bunch of stuff if you want me to message you on Discord or something like that. Who asked the question?
I'm almost certain this is my wife trolling me. I'm about to go downstairs about to go downstairs and check. You may see my screen go blank in a minute, and I'm about to go check to see if because my wife is a giant troll, by the way.
Hey, Pasta, she learned from the best.
Yeah, she will. I think it might be the other way around, to be fair.
Yeah, I was wondering who that was.
I'm almost certain that's my wife. I'm going to go check in a minute. But then again, I don't want to sleep on the couch tonight, so I might just let her have her 5 minutes of fun here for a second. But
Pasta, can you read that one off for me?
I got you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so David P. writes in and says, I was raised in a Catholic family. However, from my very earliest memories, I never believed in magic, Santa Claus, or God. I never believed right from the beginning. Am I alone? No, you're not. You're not alone, David. But I wasn't raised in a Catholic family, though. But you're not alone. I think if you were skeptical in the sense that from a young age you sensed that Santa Claus and those things weren't, true, that was a good start. I think you were on the right path. But I don't think you're alone. You probably had a shitty childhood. You're not alone. Santa Claus was kind of cool when you're a kid, right?
Yeah, and like I shared, one point I was a believer, but we talked about Tia, my girlfriend, earlier. she grew up in, she had, her dad's side of the family had, there's a lot of Mennonite, but like her dad, her mom, her sister, they never believed, didn't go to church, like they didn't know any of that. So to answer your question, no, you're definitely not alone. There's plenty of very, very good people, and I actually use Tia as my example a lot. That she's when Christians try to point to the Bible as the moral standard, or however you want to phrase that. So what about people like my girlfriend, that she's one of the most selfless, giving, humble, loving, compassionate people that I've ever met in my life. But she doesn't even know who, what, or how a God would exist. Has never even considered it until she met me, and we had this conversation. So yeah, there's plenty of very, very good people out there that have never believed in a God or magic or anything. Cool. Any other questions up there?
Oh no, Tia's co-signing. Oh, okay, I see what she's doing.
All right. So while we're waiting on some more questions to go back to that, as far as just the accuracy again, Pasta, you being a lifelong atheist, and obviously you and I both would agree that it's it's just a poorly written book. But then when you get down to for those who've jumped on and don't know the original question, then you start talking about the four Gospels, the cornerstone of the faith, resurrection, crucifixion, resurrection. The books don't even tell the same stories. As a lifelong atheist, when you hear those things and you hear those discussions had, what goes through your head? What's your opinion? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're stories. I think. What are you asking? What I think of the stories, or the concept of who wrote them?
Kind of both. So if you want to hit both,
I chalk it up to how hermeneutics works. In the sense that you think about back then, people viewed the world differently. I think that the stories depict on what man thought the world was. They heard loud noises in the sky. They thought there was a God. They didn't have the science that we do today. So those stories, to me, are what the people of that time thought. That's it. I just think of them as stories.
Okay, and that's what going back to the last viewer's question. Most people that I interact with that have never, I'm not saying they've never attended a church, but they've never been, part of the system, and don't spend every day, reading that book. Most of those people look at it as a fairy tale. And I'm not saying that to be a smart ass and be disrespectful or anything like that. But most of the people that have never walked into a church, never picked up that book, when they start hearing these stories, like even Tia, when she, because I talk her ear off about this stuff, just going through it and rehearsing it in my head. And she hears some of this stuff and she's like, what? Huh? What are you talking about? So it's nonsensical to them. So next question there.
Any of you three could ever date or be married to someone who was a theist? I want to pick apart the grammar of that, but I'll just, if you can understand what that means, then go ahead.
No.
I could.
I would say a theist, yes. A Christian, depends. We'd have to have a conversation of her knowledge on the Bible, and
I absolutely could. Just it doesn't bother me at all. If somebody believes in something, it would just mean we'd have interest in discussions.
Sure, exactly. It comes down to specific things. Like, I'm not going to marry someone who's a Scientologist, probably, because there's probably some things that wouldn't be compatible with us. So it's just that simple for me.
I was married to a theist or a Christian for 16 years, so the answer is no.
And if that is my wife, by the way, that's asking these questions, I am going to go marry a theist when we're done.
I will say this question I love a lot right here.
Okay.
Shoot.
What do you guys believe created us and all that we see?
Ooh, can I start, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Batter up.
This is a question that sneaks in baggage. Created the word created implies a creator.
Snuck that in there.
That's why I'm not a fan of that, the way that question's formed, because it's what do you believe created us? If you're asking like how do you think we got here or something like that, I could understand that, but created just assumes that there was like an intentional creation or a creator, and I don't agree with that. But I don't know what brought us here in terms of like a cosmological scale, but I would say that given like geophysical elements and biochemical elements, it's pretty clear to me that abiogenesis has the best account for that. I'm not. But he asked another question that was earlier on that I think I kind of missed on, which was standard of truth.
I saw that one. I was going to look for it.
Well, I was just going to say that applies to it because I don't know what's true. I don't have truth. I just have reasonable certainty on things, and hopefully a way to falsify the things.
Yep.
I think that's the difference between the things that I believe in and the things that a lot of other people believe in, is that I'm looking to falsify it right away. I'm trying to see how I can prove this to be not true. Not worried about whether it's true. I'm worried about how can I show that this is false. How can it's the basis of science. Take the null hypothesis, just don't make up your mind. And then once you have the hypothesis and your conclusion, try to falsify it once you have some standard or some grounds to think it might be true. So, yeah, that would be my answer to all that.
There's standards of evidence, but there is only truth.
Boom. Boom.
Check. Hey, let me see. Atheist Roundtable and Pastor Mike have... Oh, Austin and Pastor Mike have cool accent. Are you two from the Midwest? Go ahead, Austin.
I am a Hoosier. I'm from Indiana. So yes.
Yeah, Austin is. I'm not. I'm from Texas originally. And Mike and I live like a stone's throw away from each other. We're from Georgia. We live in Georgia with the good old boys, Ron. Good old boys. Some Georgia boys. Dirty birds. All right. So grumpy old cuss. I think Jesus of the Bible is an amalgamation of three messiahs from 10 BCE to 20 CE. Okay.
Yeah.
More of a comment than a question, producer. Good comment though.
I think everything comes from Paul.
Okay, here we go. All right. So when God told Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge, he told them they would surely die. The serpent told Eve they wouldn't die and that they would gain knowledge. So who lied?
God.
Oh, straight in with it.
Can you keep the question up there for a second? What God surely dies. So who lied? Well, God would have knowledge of the entire event. So, could he not have shifted things in such a way where it wouldn't have been the way it was? I mean, for me, it's not about it's clearly God. I mean, if you want to say for the sake of it, but I mean, he's the one who also knew it was going to happen before it happened. So.
And the way I always attack that, and I love that question. I mean, it's a very simple answer to me, God. But here's why. Anybody that has kids, like I hated it growing up because my dad would say, "Do this." Okay, cool. Why? And I'm not asking why to be rebellious. I'm asking why because I want to understand why I'm doing this. That way I can learn from it. And because I said so, that's why. So I never learned a lesson. I just had a task, right? And I look at that situation as the same thing. God had a purpose. If he's all-knowing, all-powerful creator, he had a purpose. And for whatever reason, I believe it's because he's, narcissistic and egotistical, but he had a purpose in asking, telling them not to do it and not giving them the reason why not to do it. Instead of saying, hey, don't eat of this tree because, these are all of the things that are going to unravel. There's going to be murder and rape and child abuse, and yet if you do this, right? He didn't explain. He just said, "You'll die. You'll die." And the serpent, snake, whatever, the devil himself, whatever, however you want to tell that story, comes along and says, no, actually, you'll be able to think like God, and you'll know good and evil, and you'll be able to operate in that way. So 100%. If Adam and Eve were real people, they 100% got duped. God hustled them. Period. And
who hardened Pharaoh's heart, though?
God did in the Bible.
Yeah. I was like, it's pretty clear.
This is a safe story. No, I got another question from. I'd like to know how to pronounce his name, but I don't want to take a shot at it and mess it up.
Yeah.
So
I know how to pronounce his last name, I think, because I had a friend with the same last name, but hopefully they pronounce it the same.
So you're not going to give it a shot? Give it a shot. All right. No, we're neither one of us are going to give it a shot.
There we go.
Christian theology and the threat.
Nguyen. I'll just say Nguyen.
Okay. All right.
I'm pretty sure that's how you say his last name.
Okay. And I would like to say that you don't say the H at the end of that name, but I don't know. So Christian theology, or without it, and the threat of eternal damnation. Do you think that the Gospels are a good philosophy about virtues, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness?
Who would like to go first?
I would have stopped at just, do I think that they're good philosophy? I think that they are philosophy in a sense. Whether or not they're good is subjective.
Okay. Yeah. And anybody that has a conversation, and whether it's on our shows or the Discord or TikTok or wherever, that I don't mind entertaining the philosophical banter, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to is the God of this book real? And the guys that do this show with me, they know that I'm always going to go down to brass tacks, and it's like, is it good philosophy? Is it is this where we get our morality? Well, before we can examine any of that, you have to prove that the God's real. And if you can't prove the God's real, that it doesn't matter what the book says, So that's really how I get. And I think it's important that everybody gets educated in those things so you can have intelligent conversations. But at the end of the day, if we're going to apply any or attempt to apply any truth to a book that is supposedly authored by a God, we then have to first prove the God.
Yeah, and I would say that I would say no, they're not good. It's not good philosophy, or they're not good virtues. They don't teach any. I don't find any good takeaways from Abraham and Isaac. I don't find any good takeaways from creating the conditions for the thing that you're going to create. You have every single aspect of control over that, and then you make things such a certain way for a thing that didn't sign up to live. It had no choice to live. It just had to live beyond its will, and then now you subscribe these faults to it from one thing that happened, and then you double down on it and send yourself as like some blood sacrifice, which is very indicative of Bronze Aged people.
Yeah.
and the story involved, more than it is the revelation of a God.
What's more likely?
Yeah, exactly. What's more likely? I'd go Occam's razor on that all day long. But I just, no, I don't see any. I see the opposite. Look at it this way. Let's look at witches. Like, what was that, 200 years ago? Women that are coercing with demons, we're hanging them. We've only moved away from Christian morality. We've only stopped owning people as slaves in the Bible. We've only stopped condemning homosexuals. My roommates can get married. They are married. So everything that we're doing as a society is moving away from that. So it's pretty clear to me that it doesn't have those values, because apparently we don't care about them either as a society that likes to claim they're Christian, especially
And
where I live.
and if I can on that one, we can move to the next question because he brought up hell, and both Pasta and Mike last couple of days, you guys have heard me use this, and I'm going to use the condensed version of this right now. But in the Bible says that God is love, that it's not a characteristic, it's not just a trait or a personality, profile for him. It is his identity or his quote unquote DNA, it's his makeup, love. Then, if you open your Bibles to First Corinthians and read the description or the biblical definition of love, not dictionary, but what the Bible says love is and how it should act and perform. One of them is love does not keep account of wrongs. But then we go and we find out that actually love, God, does, because if you don't say this magic prayer and you've done all this shit in your life, you're going to go burn in hell. I'm sorry, I don't find anything moral, loving, accepting, empathetic, anything to do with that. So hell to me is a scare tactic, and these gentlemen know when, in certain conversations, depending on what's going on, when that subject gets brought up, I'll my teeth come out pretty quick because I was threatened with hell my entire life, and that's to me it's manipulation, and it's really it's a cowardly thing to do to try to get somebody to believe in a God.
Well said.
Yeah.
Can I ask this question? I don't think it is my wife now that I'm looking at these questions. Surely. I thought it was earlier when she was talking
now
about
you are gonna be sleeping on the couch. You better watch your mouth.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because she does tease me sometimes about saying that I prefer the other mic over you. That's what made me think. But this question says...
Yeah, she tells me that too.
Son of a I wouldn't mind anyway. It's within the atheist religion. You can share. Anyway, any of the three of you, if you have children, would you allow them to choose whether or not they believe in a deity, or are you going to only expose them to atheism? I like how they're speaking in atheistic language to whoever this is.
That's a good question. I mean,
well, I can answer it right off the bat. I do allow my son to go to church. He goes to church with his mother-in-law, and I have no problem with it at all. So there you go. Have that. Shove that in your pocket. Keep it. Pull it out every now and again.
I would say, as someone whose parents are Catholic and they believe, and never once, I don't ever think I heard my mom or dad say the word God, like, ever growing up. It just was never part of my language. That's what made me look unbiased. And someone's going to look at my conclusion and go, well, that's why you're an atheist. It's like, no, I had so many years to really look at things, and I wanted God to be true so bad. I mean, the thing is that people, I guess, have to understand about me in that regard of why I would let my kid choose whatever they want is because I did believe stupid things. Like, you could have convinced me 9/11 was a conspiracy. You could have convinced me a lot of things. And that's why I take this so seriously, because getting into all this is what helped me not be a complete fucking idiot, just a little bit of an idiot. And so I would want to grant that to my kid if I had it, in terms of, like, how is someone going to learn if they're force-fed information? I live in the South. I have to see it so often, people who just act exactly like their parents because of the way that they're raised. And if you look at me and my parents, I'm very, very different, but it's very loving, and we all have no problem with our beliefs. And I think that's a much better way to live. At least I'm evidence of that being true for me. So I would do the same thing for my kid.
I think Divine Disbelief is piggybacking off of Mike, and go check their YouTube out as well. I don't know which one of the two, the awesome duo, typed this, but they said, meh. They're going to find out about religion at some point, so why should we get in the way? I think that's the best answer, pretty much.
Sure, and especially if I mean, you don't want your kids to have sex, harping that into them a lot is probably gonna make them act out in that. So, even if you're a Christian or whatever, and your goal is to get your kid, into this, let them do it at their own pace, because you might be surprised that without that, like, telling that person what to do, they might actually come to that conclusion if you let them make up their own mind.
Yep.
That's what it all comes down to. So
Yeah, and I'll keep mine quick. So my 4 children from my previous marriage, they typically go to church every week. My ex-wife was she's a believer, and did the mission trip thing and the choir of the fire and all the things that Divine Disbelief and I talked about when he was on. So she was very much in trapped in that lifestyle as well. And the thing is, even the couple years now that I've been not just an atheist but a vocal atheist, the only thing I tell my kids is be skeptical of everything. Don't take anybody's word. Do your research, do your due diligence. And if you come out on the other side and you still believe that, then I'll leave you alone. But I want you to apply skepticism to everything in life, even at your job. Read the fine print, go through it. Don't sign the contract unless you've applied logic, reason, and skepticism. And you've done your due diligence. So, as a vocal atheist, former believer, having kids that go to church every Sunday, I want them to find truth for themselves. I don't want them to be sheep. Period. Whether it's mine or somebody else's.
I got you, man.
That's a good question. The Atheist Roundtable, is it safe to say that that objective truth exists, but we have no access because of our imperfect senses? Instead, we have perspectives of what we perceive as truth.
It's a great question. Excellent.
It's a really good one. I mean, it addresses objectivity involved with, like, philosophy, but I would probably take more of the scientific aspect of objectivity, and that you can only that you're going to have to rely on empirical data through your senses. You don't have. Here's the thing. I don't know if truth exists objectively or subjectively. All I know is that I have the tools in front of me to make the best assessment, and it results in the manifestation of me being able to do this show right now, and I'm looking up and I see 20 people are watching, and they can receive that. Those tools that were involved in that process, I really don't give a shit if it gets me to objective truth. It's providing results in my life, so until someone can actually show me a way out of that, I'm stuck with thinking that this is all I have. So I don't know at all. I think people should be comfortable with saying I don't know.
That very much so.
Yeah, I don't see how someone could know.
When you have a belief system like a religion, you're not allowed to say you don't know, with some aspects of it. So you can't. Well, it's not that you're not allowed to. It jeopardizes what you're believing in. So that's why you're so defensive in that belief.
Yeah. And my thing is, like, could my position on, objectivity in that regard be detrimental to my position? Well, I mean, sure, someone could point that out, but I'm not gonna, like, commit. I'm not gonna just act as if I have complete knowledge to all this when I'm somebody who very openly will say I don't know. I'm trying to learn these things. I do know that through my process of this, I've yet to get anything that's convinced me to what the opposition is saying, about objective truth and objective morality and those concepts that relate towards a God. My not knowing doesn't lend credit to you thinking you know. So it's like, I don't know. I wish people would be able to say that more often, though.
I just noticed Spartan, Ethan, we're all big fans of Ethan. He just popped in the comments. I've had a chat with him actually off record or whatever. And he's even said loosely that he identifies almost as a agnostic theist. We had a discussion about the whole agnostic thing. I don't know if you might have been present. I'm not sure.
No, I have a friend, though, that he actually wants to come on the show. His name's Hart. Hopefully he's watching. I got to get back to him. But he wants to be on the show, and I think he considers himself an agnostic theist as well. He's also a Christian, so I understand the position.
Sure, and he does talk a lot about cool subject matter, which I like when theists identify in that position. But it's still interesting in a different sense, because I wouldn't be committed to jump onto that boat if I'm not 100%. That's why I stay in the lane that I'm in, because I don't know. I just don't know enough information to say I'm a Christian or Muslim or Hindu, but I'm only 80% in. I just don't know enough to do that. Tia with a question. Let's see. When someone is indoctrinated and their identity and daily life is fully entangled in the church, how can they overcome the fear of losing everything once they begin to question their belief system? It's a great question. I think that is a troublesome issue with a lot of people that are indoctrinated from the money, from the community, from the lifestyle, from everything. There are some religions that shun you for leaving. Help me out with the word. There's actually a word associated with that.
Disassociate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a girl on TikTok I've seen that she's an ex-Mormon, and I believe now she's like a cam girl, and
I don't know those guys. I don't know what are those.
They're not letting that down. I'll tell you that they're pretty brutal on that. So it comes off as nice, but the second you leave, I guess not so much.
Right.
Or you got like Scientology, where like if you're hey, let me run to my car while you're signing up and getting the e-meter test all volted up and ready to go for you. You go out to the car, they have someone walking out with you. If you're like, hey, let me go get my phone out of my car or something, they limit the amount of time that you have to even think for yourself, for you to think like for 1 second, like maybe I should not do this. They keep your mind busy, so some take it to a crazy level.
Austin, your lady's dropping in the good questions, man.
Yep. I just wanted to point out that I have her talking our language. when I met her, she wasn't talking about indoctrination or epistemology. I love it. Fucking love it.
Did you indoctrinate her into?
I did, very much so. Very much so. No, she's one of the most free thinkers that's in my day-to-day life, and she's also my biggest fan, and she does not miss an episode. So it's she's awesome. But I just wanted to say something real quick.
Sure.
Agape dropped a comment a second ago and said that atheism is a religion.
Who's Agape?
Agape. Amen Ministry.
I got you.
So just for the record, because that is not an accurate statement. So atheism is the lack of belief, or the lack of belief in a God.
Yeah, but does it mean? I don't want to jump in. You first got to make sure that what does he mean by that? Is he meaning?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, because like Buddhists are atheists, and then, I mean, so are you referring to them?
Yeah, and you can go. There's 10,000 rabbit trails you can go down there.
Yeah,
here's
exactly.
Religion by definition. I got my phone up. I got Webster's out. The belief and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Guess what? We don't believe. We're not a religion.
Yeah, we're also been denied charitable statuses too, if you want to go by the way that you guys are recognized as religions too. So really, anywhere you check it across the board, it doesn't seem to work out.
Yeah, I always think I and again, not to be insulting or anything, but I always get a chuckle or a laugh when a theist says that atheism is a religion, when the definition of religion literally talks about a belief of a god.
Well, I can kind of address the majority of Agape's questions, and respectfully though, because you got to appreciate this person has come in and asked a lot of questions, which is great.
Absolutely.
Most of the questions that they're asking are coming from a false dichotomy perspective. If not for God, why else? Everything else. We just don't know. That's some of these things you just don't know. There's no answer to, or you don't have the answer to. It does not mean that God did it.
Correct. Yeah, and the most intellectually honest thing anybody can say about anything that they don't know is I don't know. Don't whether it's this or sports, marriage, relationships, whatever it is. If you don't know, just say I don't know.
What is your favorite Bible passage, Austin?
Oh, singular passage. I guess now, as I've been doing this current study, where it says that love is kind, because I know it's talking about God too, and He's not kind.
I don't know the proper verbiage to it, but I do like the one that tells you to love everyone the same. Love everybody the same or whatever.
You guys don't even want to hear mine.
Well, we could all be silly about some of the stuff in there, but I do. If the Bible has a serious one that means or translates to everybody loving one another,
Second Kings,
then that's what they should do away with everything else and just print that on the cover, and then I'd buy it. But Tony McNeely, T-Mac, says, and I guess I can understand what he means. I don't know, what the scientific terms, all y'all are using or whatever. Is believing the same thing as knowing? I don't care, but it is to him. So some people do believe in something and it's true to them because they have personal experiences with it, which is fine. You can't argue against that. If somebody says they believe in something and they've experienced something, they've had an audible voice or something, it feels tangible to them, then you can't have an argument with them. You can try and reason, you can try and talk to them, you can try and use epistemology to try and guide them to a place that might give them a different thought processing to knowledge. But if they believe in something, that is up to them. That's their thought processing that got them there, and it's true to them. So does it mean it's true, or if it's factual, it might not? That's the equivalency of faith.
Sure. I think that sums that up pretty well. You can have an experience, but I wasn't there. I could just say that maybe we haven't ruled out everything. That's about the best I could do.
What's your thoughts on free will, Austin?
Oh, that's a good one.
I knew you were going to say that. Free will is bullshit. It's so free will, and again, anybody wants to contact me after the show, I get it to you. There's been it was either Harvard or Yale. Some of the philosophy classes, they've done write-ups on it, and I've spent hours studying that, comparing it to the Bible. And free will, philosophically is you can make the decision you want to make, do what you want to do, and there will not be any influence by an external being, meaning a god or goddess or whatever. So we don't have free will. We never had free will. What the Bible talks about is an ultimatum, where you do it this way that's prescribed ahead of time. And if you don't meet that, or you don't, you don't meet those requirements, and you don't follow suit on what's been ordered, there's an ultimatum, there's a penalty. You have to suffer. You have to suffer the penalty. So, when I hear free will, now that I've put the time and energy into researching it, it's not, I'm talking biblically, and how that's presented. And I know the Bible doesn't say the word free will, but that's what it over and over alludes to. Free will and a biblical stance or view is total nonsense, and ultimatum. That's it.
Yeah. In regards to whether or not you mean just determinism or free will, I would probably align myself more as a determinist. I think that there's more. It appears to me to be more likely that external things that happen beyond you don't really control what you think you control based on the just overarching giant scale of the cosmos and the cause and effect nature. I don't think that you can. I don't know. I'll just say this. I'm a Calvinist. I'm a compatibilist. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'd say I'm a determinist. So that's something that's super interesting to me. But I understand there's some issues with that, especially in regards to morality and all those things. But I don't know. Maybe compatibilist, determinist. I'm still trying to figure that out. So I would say I don't know.
Yeah, but as far as the actual question, thoughts on free will,
thoughts on free will, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it said.
I echo what you say in terms of like the Bible, but in terms of like whether we actually have free will of our actions as opposed to like a deterministic nature. Yeah, that's
a very long. I
could give you slope.
Yeah, I could give you my opinion, but I'll be talking for an hour. So
it's above my pay grade. I feel like.
Yeah, I have a pretty. It's simple, but verbally it's hard to explain it. So that maybe for another time. But Mike, you mind reading that question off for me?
Sure. I was having trouble reading this question though. Do you believe this? And then I don't know what it is.
It's in another language.
Yeah. So your answer is, I get what you're trying to do, but I mean.
So the answer is I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, back to this one.
And real quick, Agape, thank you for all the questions and everything. Seriously, I know sometimes we can be direct with our answers.
Except for the last one, except for that last question, I don't thank you for that one. I thank you for the other ones though. That one I don't thank you for at all.
All right, read that one.
What evidence would it take to convince you of a God who says you already have enough evidence? What evidence would it take you to convince you of a God who says you already have enough evidence? I'm not sure if I understand the phrasing of that question.
Well, I think that the stance that the most atheists that you speak to and ask a question like that too is, if he's all knowing, all powerful, and all loving, he should know what it takes to convince me, and he hasn't done it yet. It's a simple answer.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, if it has knowledge of of what I would consider, if it knows my standards of evidence for claims, especially what would convince me of his existence, it sounds like the ball's in his court, not mine. So.
Cool. Next question there, producer Steve.
We only spend our days talking about it. It's not like we don't put enough effort into this for something to fucking reveal itself to me.
Cool. Why we kind of there we go. Posse, you want to read that?
Yeah, I hear morality comes from God. So if someone converts to Christianity at say age 25, where does morality come from?
Well, the Christian response to that would be that you already, I guess, would have known that. You just kind of suppressed it. What is that, Romans 1:20 or whatever? I wouldn't. Yeah, it sounds like they think we're Christian or something when they ask that question, so I'm confused. But yeah, I would say that morality comes from the biological process, or at least through an evolutionary process, and is inherent within the inner working of our brain. So it already exists. It doesn't matter what you believe in. You could think that the morality comes from a fire hydrant down the street, but you would just be wrong about it. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah, and again, I always point to Tia on this. Again, one of the most morally grounded, humble people that I have in my life, and
I got to meet this girl. I got to meet her, man.
Well, I keep going back to her because she's the perfect example of the lifelong atheist that, like. So where did her morality come from? She's never read a Bible. She doesn't know a God, but she's awesome. So that whole, we need this book to define our our morality or our moral compass or our moral bubble is just crazy to me. Next up, producer Steve.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention, because we had this whole, just figured that you guys would want to study the Bible in its original language, which would be I believe, an etymological fallacy. Um, yeah, we have to do the best that we can with it, but that just all that does is tell that that was an unreliable mechanism for your God to choose. That we have to actually even have that conversation, or that you even have to point that out, shows failure on his side, not on my side. I had nothing to do with that tactic.
Are you talking? Are you talking about the translations?
Well, yeah, because he's talking about he was. That's why I said I see what you're trying to do, because he was trying to make a reference to the fact that we don't have the full context of the originals, but that only is detrimental to your position as a Christian who doesn't have the originals, not to me, who acknowledges that and doesn't accept it subsequently. So,
well, and if you're all knowing, all loving God, and you want everybody to get to heaven, there's going to be even people with learning disabilities and delayed learning and things like that. I guarantee you they can't go read the Hebrew. So this was just a bad format to begin with.
I always
2,000
wondered.
languages missing, by the way, which equates to about 190 million people that do not have a translation right now. So that is a failed attempt at getting the most important message out. And then when we look at the numbers, we're at 28 to 32% of the world population. Didn't succeed very well.
I always wondered as well why a god would reveal themselves to a group of people in the Bronze Age there when the Chinese were so much more advanced thousands of years earlier. They could have done a better job of documenting, possibly. But that always strikes me as odd too.
Yep. Let me use a form of telling this story in a way that's gonna be that will be able to be lost or translated from poor translations, already existing translations, or dead languages, that we don't even speak anymore. Like, yeah, let's do that whole obstacle course and see what spits out at the other side. Like, it seems just so mind-blowingly primitive and bronze-aged men-like to me.
All right. Somebody want to read off the one that's up there, please?
Sure. To clarify my earlier question, what advice would you give to a theist who is newly questioning their belief, but they feel losing everything: family, friends, recreation, childcare, job, etc.? In fact, if Null is left, that was something that Null had discussed with us recently, some of these things at least. And Austin actually had the privilege of chatting with this young man. And it's an interesting thing because these are the things that you don't get to hear about: the trauma and the ugly underbelly of religion. Not necessarily Christianity, but any type of religion that you're in, where you have a deep stronghold on you when you actually in this community. Everyone actually holds you to it, and you can't really say, "Hey, I'm done. You know what? I don't." It's Tuesday. I was kind of in it on Monday, but I got shit to do now on Tuesday. I don't want to be involved anymore. You can't say that in some of these religions. So people don't factor this stuff in. You got to weigh these things up. And it was a really good conversation I heard Austin have with this young man, and I wish he'd come on the show and chat about it. Maybe if he hears this or wants to come back in, that'd be a good conversation to have.
When him and I actually talked via text message, we were talking last night, so I'll make sure he goes and replays this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he messaged me in the Discord, but a month or so ago, and we had a good conversation.
Yep. You guys mind that last question? You mind if I just say one thing on there?
Oh, sure.
You have to. Every person's different as far as their personality, style, and how aggressive they do or don't want to be. With their deconversion, how vocal they want to be, and because I get messages a lot like, I can't believe that you just come out guns blazing, and but that's my personality. I'm a fighter, I'm a go-getter, so that's just naturally who I am. Not everybody's like that, so what I would encourage the person to do is and this is kind of, even when I talk to that gentleman, what I encourage him with is, you have to identify what makes you happy. and what makes you fulfilled in life. How do you find, the most authentic version of yourself? And where you find that is where you need to be. So if that means you need to wait a couple more weeks, you need to wait a month, before you come out and tell your family that you don't believe what they believe anymore, because it is gonna, if it's like my family, it's gonna, shatter their world, break their hearts, whatever you want to say. But here it is. At the end of the day, due to my deconversion, my mom used to be one of my best friends. I now no, I no longer have a relationship with her, all because of her decisions and how she's talked to me and treated me because of that decision. So yes, it hurts and it sucks, and in the moment, it's tough. But now this version of Austin is the happiest, most fulfilled, and most authentic Austin I've ever been in my entire life. So you do it at your pace, and whatever that looks like, whatever that sounds like. But at the end of the day, if you know what it is, eventually you have to make that decision to jump, or you're never truly going to be happy. And that's what it comes down to.
That's awesome. Austin. I just want to touch on a comment in the comment section, just the lunacy, right? I know a Hindu guy that witnessed a baby sacrifice. I know a Muslim hip hop dancer. I know a Christian who is a bricklayer. I mean, what's your point?
Yeah, I'm not too sure I understand the point on that either.
Is there a point to it, or?
It's very non sequitur, I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. I know that Pastor Mike studied Hinduism, so I hope to discuss with you about a typical atheist response to the Pascal's wager. I don't think the response is good enough. Fair enough, but I really haven't studied Hinduism to any extent of anything beyond what you can get from the internet. So I'm not any specialist or anything. So if you want to chat about it, I'll be happy to Google anything you'd like, sir.
Sure. I'm curious about what the response was at all to it, because Pascal's wager is pretty piss poor, just in the idea that you're making a wager on what God it is. I mean, you're taking a yes or no proposition, you know what I mean? And then you have to divide the yes into like thousands of different, is it this God, that God, this God, this God, that God, that you have just as much of a chance of messing up. I mean, so it's not, I don't see the value to that argument.
Right.
All right. Anything else, Producer Steve? If not, I'm going to start with our closing statements. Make it sound all professional.
Yeah, Agape, I think that's how you say it, Agape Ministry. They should be on the show here soon, where we're going to work out a date with that if we haven't already.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative. Like I said earlier, thank you for coming in and asking the questions. They seem to all have the same tone to them, which is fine, but maybe you can better present yourself on screen. So, yeah, absolutely. Definitely come on and chat with the guys. I'd be excited about that.
Yep, that'd be awesome. Anybody watching, if you're atheist, theist of any sort, we want to have that conversation. And if you've watched our episodes, it's a very simple format. What, how, why, and so it's very straightforward. We'd love to have you on. You can email me, austin@tart.live.
Oh, just before you wrap it up, Austin, the gentleman in the comments is saying that some baby sacrifice that he knows about is the true representation of Hinduism, apparently. So all of Hinduism holds claim to a baby sacrifice he's going to make a video about. So there you go. Hinduism now represents baby sacrifices.
Sure.
Because of this one claim.
Sure. Where exactly does that prove the claim that his God exists, if he believes? Because that's what I'm wondering, if he's just trying to like rule out this. Anyway, we'll touch on that later. I want to say that before you wrap it up, we've been doing this for, I think, 27 days, maybe a little longer. I'm not sure. But we have to reach 206 or 207 subscribers in that time, and I wanted to thank every person that has been a part of it, especially the people in the comments. Grumpy Old Cuss. There's some people I saw from TikTok. Secular, I can't remember their name right now. She's gonna kill me, but she knows who I'm talking about. Ethan, Chase, everybody.
No, don't shout out Chase. So, forget Chase.
Yeah, okay, I'll replace. I'll place Chase with Tia.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wanted to thank that because we didn't expect to get that many that quickly. So it's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, every episode, there, the people that subscribe and watch and listen and keep up with us, and I even get messages now like, "What are you guys doing next?" So it's pretty badass, man. Considering we've been doing it for 20-something days. So again, just to reiterate what Mike said, if you haven't already, go subscribe, follow us, and you'll get an idea. We're pretty direct. But we're respectful. We love having good conversation. But we thank you guys. 200 subs, subscribes, and less than 30 days is amazing on this platform. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we appreciate it. So again,
could I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Hate to cut you off there, but I really wanted to.
How dare you?
How dare you? Well, I wanted to just point out that I'm sure you probably would have gone into it, but there's a lot of people that are involved in this, more than just the 3 people here. We got Steve that's behind the scenes now, that's asking questions, throwing up the banners, doing all that kind of stuff. So we really do appreciate. When we flash a Patreon or we flash something like that, we're trying to just help fund the people that help make this happen, or help fund the show in general in that sense. So it's everything that you guys do in that regard helps keep that going. But the fact that we even got the recognition that we have in such a short time really is really awesome for me. And I wanted to preface that the main reason I wanted what I wanted to say was that a lot of our videos are like 2 hours long, and I get it. Some people don't want to watch all those. We are doing series where we'll cut these down. We'll have 10-minute sections of specific videos on the what, the how, and the why. And that way we can try to get people to watch clips and then get more into it. So just bear with us. We'll be uploading a lot more videos that are a little easier to digest. So.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll be splitting them up, and Mike's already sent me a couple that he worked on, and Mike does great work there. But yeah, so I wasn't going to go into that, the thank yous before we jump off. So obviously, Pasta's on with us tonight, but usually he's a huge help just directing the show, on the back end. And
I'm a sponsor, by the way. I'm not a person that benefits from the show. I'm a sponsor of the show, so I'm supporting these guys to put out the platform. And we need a voice, big First Amendment supporter. And Austin and Mike are 2 people that have, my full support. Steve, Jeff, all the guys, Loki, big shout out to Loki all the way over in Scotland. He's a fucking rock star. Scott, Libertarian Joker, a couple of guys we're going to mention. Cease to Know, big beast in the philosophical, argument game. Anybody else that comes through, Connor Prosser, young man, anybody that wants to debate some young, calm-spoken gentleman that still believes in Santa Claus, you can talk to him. We got a really good team of free-thinking people that would like to talk to theists. And if I've forgotten anybody, it's probably because I'm a little bit tipsy now and I don't have anything in front of me. But these are some cool-ass dudes that just want to chat and have fun. So come on, get in touch with them and hit that subscribe and like button.
Yeah. Yep, and you can always practice your conversations on the Discord with people.
Yep. And yet, if you want the Discord, just go to tart.live. The link is on there to join the Discord. You can have this conversation with us all day, every day, 24 hours. But yeah, thank you to everybody he just mentioned, and I won't go through the whole list now since these 2 gentlemen did. But we appreciate every single one of you. And if we forgot anybody, you know what time it is. But yeah, great conversation tonight, Mike, Pasta. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes,
thank you for having me on, man. You guys are awesome.
Yep, you both are two dear friends of me, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And last plug, Monday night, don't forget, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mark, the legend, will be live with us, and he claims that he is the return of the Messiah. So we're going to dive into that and chop it up, and it's going to be fun. So, Steve, cue the track.
Yeah.